Okay, so you're an investor in Valiant.
Yep.
A short seller comes out and puts this report. You obviously read it. You see the share reaction.
Yep.
After you've read it, do you not believe it or do you not care? How do you approach it?
So we try to approach it the way good journalists do it, which is we try to do some fact checking right off the get-go. So the first thing we try to do is credibility of source, right? Is this person who's making this claim operating in a regulated jurisdiction? Are they in a regulated industry? Do they have anybody who has oversight? If this person is making these claims, who is she accountable to? So in the case of some of the people who've been getting a lot of playing time, they're completely unregulated, right? So that makes us immediately skeptical. It also makes us frustrated when we see how much airtime they get because they're basically being given equal stage with people who operate under highly regulated circumstances, whether they're accountants, CFOs, fund managers, etc.
But this isn't the first person to have a desire to short Valiant. Many people have. They've just been wrong.
Right.
He's the first person in a while to actually say something and have the
That's
share
fine,
price go down.
Like you mentioned James Grant, then get James Grant on the show because James Grant has a certain accountability. But this man we're talking about has alleged a fraud, right? And there's been virtually, up until yesterday, virtually no fact checking on this person, right? This isn't the first bear raid that this man has staged in Canada, even in the last 30 days. And yet when we start checking out the facts, there's no pushback because this person who's unaccountable, whenever you say something, so the company or the accountants or highly credible fund managers can say one thing about the company, and then this guy who's beholden to nobody, right, gets equal weighting coming back on the argument.
You brought up James Grant. James Grant last year, right, in 2014, wrote that he's concerned about the accounting and that the accounting masks when sales are actually made. Something similar to what Andrew Leff is saying. Regardless of what they're saying, you're an investor, you're long. Are you comfortable with the accounting? Do you feel like you know when things are being booked?
No, I'm comfortable with accounting. Bill Ackman has said publicly he's comfortable with accounting. James Kramer on CNBC has said he's comfortable with the accounting. Ken, the guy that runs Costco, said he's comfortable with the accounting, right? But what we're all seeing is in this attempt to play up a story, to get a really good story on the air that's very, very compelling, is Main Street is getting absolutely crushed by this. So Valiant is now bouncing back today. It's up another 8 or 9% today. But that guy in Saskatoon or that guy in Nova Scotia who sold the stock yesterday at a deep discount to what he paid for it, he's getting absolutely crushed by this. And part of the reason he's getting crushed by this is because these people who create a panic in the marketplace are being given all this airtime and nobody's checking the facts behind these people.
Do you think, though, that the consequence of this was to break the story? Valiant has grown and been successful because of its ability to go out and do acquisitions. Given what has happened, do you believe that they can still go out, do acquisitions, fund that through debt? We've seen some cracks in the high-yield market. And Allergan was one of the first companies to say, we don't want to be part of Valiant. We're not comfortable with how they run their business. Is the M&A story broken?
So once again, in the nature of fact checking, right? Just out of curiosity, do you have a sense what their return on equity is next year?
No,
with
what
Valiant's?
is it?
Well, no, but I'm asking you because that's what you're asking me. The question that you're asking me has facts behind it. So, do you have any sense of how profitable this company is? Do you know
of course, but
what is
that why you own the stock at this
point
point right now, or do you own it for the acquisitions going forward?
It has a 45% return on equity. How many companies with market caps greater than 10 billion in Canada have returns on equity that are greater than 45%? Right? I know what the answer to that is, but I don't think anybody else in this room knows that. And that's why I'm saying is that if we just put up people with innuendo, right, but nobody actually goes and says, but what are the underlying facts? Once again, we talk about the revenue recognition issue that we're talking about. So let's just say, how do I stand back as a forensic accountant and look at something like this? First thing I do is I say, there's $69 million of revenue in a $16 billion revenue company, right? So in terms of the revenues that are in question here, they're a fraction they're less than half of 1%, right? So you go, so from a materiality point of view, right? But we already know the company has said, look, the revenue recognition is exactly in line with what our accountants have recommended, and they will come out on Monday morning to reaffirm that point, right? But then here's the next point, because people go, yeah, but if the accounting isn't right there, how do we know the accounting's not right anywhere? But it starts with the first lie. the first premise is that first bit of revenue is wrong in the first place, and nobody goes beyond that first 69. But how do you know if I find a small subsidiary of the Bank of Nova Scotia in Belize that has some little problem or whatever, right? And then you go, well, it's going to take them a week to get the proper answer because it's in Belize or whatever. And then you go, yeah, but how do we know that the whole Bank of Nova Scotia isn't a fraud? Well, because there's a lot of honest people that work there, right? Because they've got really, really good accountants, they've got really, really good auditors, et cetera, et cetera. And yet some guy, some turkey in Nevada can make these allegations, and look at the airtime he gets.
Well, you're getting the airtime too. You're long. Let's go back to my original question. So you've said the return on equity is 45%. That is the business that currently exists.
Right.
So you like that regardless of their M&A ability.
Right,
that was my question.
Yeah, because and it's on 5 times earnings, right? So that ratio of PE to return on equity is among the large caps. There's nothing that has a more attractive valuation. But here's what 45% return on equity means. It means whatever your equity base is at the end of 2015, next year you're going to have 45% more capital than you have right now. So think about that. Whatever you want to do, you want to acquire something, you want to buy back stock, you have all the options. When you have super high cash flows, that's why Warren Buffett likes high ROE stocks. That's why I like high ROE stocks. And people say, oh, well, they can't acquire. Then pay down their debt. But with that kind of ROE, they have all kinds of options. Well, someone says, well, I don't like in 8 or 9% of their model, I don't like what their pricing is. Fine, bring their pricing back. So the ROE goes from 45 to 40. It's still an incredibly profitable business. So yeah, I like the business, but if we let these turkeys from Nevada who are completely unregulated, right? And that's only one part of it. The volumes though that come with these guys suggest that maybe our friend in Nevada is working with some other people, right? And we give these guys legitimacy, then the market becomes a farce.
You might say that, but a report comes out.
I'm saying that. I'm saying that these guys are making aspects of the market a farce. And I'm saying that what's happened here with Valiant, and this is the biggest company it's happened to so far. But here's the next question, and I'd ask it to regulators. Who's next? Who do these guys come after next?
Well, we know regulators are looking into it. Now, whether you think it's fair or not, the question now is in Valiant's court. They're holding a conference call. What do they need to say to investors? What do you want to hear from them?
I mean, I think the share price in the last 2 days is telling you what's going to happen, is that ultimately the truth carries the day. So we know, for example, before this, that Concordia went through a similar thing, but because they were in the midst of their deal, they couldn't talk. That stock has come roaring up, but of course, some poor souls were selling this a couple days ago at 25 bucks, who probably bought it at 80 or 90. They're sitting here stunned. They don't realize how they've been. They're sitting just embarrassed of their trading decision, and they don't want to say anything to anybody. But they've been ripped off. They got ripped off by these people that are crapping all over these stocks. And the person who bought Valiant 6 months ago at this price and sold it a couple days ago down here, same thing. They're beating themselves up, but really they should be looking beyond that and going, no, we got legged over. We got beaten up by an industry that is lightly regulated right now, and where these crooks from Nevada get equal playing time with real people.
How is that different from somebody who says, I'm going to go long a stock and I think it's going to triple, and their analysis could be totally wrong, but they can go out and they can say that and they can move the market. They can do it on both sides.
But how many times does a person who has no linkages to any accountability, right? That's the whole issue. Is just the same thing. You're a journalist who is regulated, right? But you're competing with people on the blog who are not regulated, can make anything up. But that's why we don't believe those people, and we don't give them a lot of airtime or credibility. We don't cite them in our research reports. But if it's BNN or the CBC or the Globe and Mail, highly credible sources, we put them in a different category. And you have to do the same thing out there in the investment world. Is for people who are not accountable. You can't give them the airtime, no more than if I'm going to do some kind of an interview with a journalist from the New York Times and some crank who sits in his basement writing stuff where there's no substantiation of the facts.
Why not just walk away from this? I mean, why not invest in a company that doesn't require so much defense? You know, wouldn't it be easier to go to a company?
Because for me, and this is why I'm on here today, it's not about Valiant, right? Keeping Main Street engaged in the capital markets is important. Having fair markets is important. This is a great country, and I come on to BNN all the time to talk about, Constellation Software, and to talk about Home Capital, and to talk about MTY Food Group. These are wonderful, great Canadian stories. Honest people, hardworking, and they provide a vehicle for people to prepare for their retirement. Keeping that system clean and fair is really important to me. Financially, I'm okay. I'm going to be fine for the rest of my life. This is not about business. This is about living in a country where things are done fairly. And when we allow these guys from Nevada to come in and do these raids, right, it's incredibly damaging. But here's maybe my final comment to think about, because for me, Valiant is only part of the story. There's a bigger story here, because there's a lot more raids going on than you see. Is I think we're vulnerable. I don't think that we're ready for the next big one. And I think if these syndicates come after the financial services industry here, right, I think we've got a bigger problem. And this, when you look at the amount of pension fund assets and you look at how effective a relatively small group has been on doing a bear raid on a fairly large company like Valiant, if they decide to come after the rest of Canada, this will very quickly become a massive Main Street issue.
What needs to happen then? What needs to happen from the regulators?
Right. There's a couple of things here, but specifically with the financial stuff, they have to be aware of how easy it is now to do. Right. We have a playbook. In the last 30 days, I go, wow, I could do this. I could make I personally could make all the banking stocks in Canada go down 10% on Monday. And once they go down 10%, now the momentum is in place and they just keep going. So imagine if we could make the stock market crash between now and Christmas, because some highly influential big mouth with no ethics went out there and called a massive sell on the Canadian market, right? This becomes a Bank of Canada. This becomes a Parliament issue, and this is an issue that will have people in this country going crazy. Are we ready for that? I don't know if we're ready for it. But the playbook for how could one do it if one wanted to do it, it's just been laid out in the last 30 days.
Wouldn't the money that is on the side of, buying up these assets outweigh a lone person in their basement, though? I mean, at the end of the day, if what you're talking about comes to fruition, the money is stacked against somebody who wants to do that.
So think about it from a credibility point of view, right? This guy in Nevada has taken what, a $70 or $80 billion company. Look how much value he's destroyed. But what if he decides that he wants to take a bunch of mortgage facts, right, and distort those? But before he does that, he gets a whole bunch of syndicates online, right? Once it starts coming, guess what happens with people like me? Once we know the bear raid has started, we just go, you can't fight this. And the press will pile on. We start selling our stuff, and the selling begets selling, and it just goes whoosh. It just wipes you out, right? And we always thought, well, yeah, they can do this on a $300 million, $400 million company. Now we're starting to see it happening on $50 and $60 billion companies. So, I mean, Valiant, let's say the next one is National Bank or Home Capital, right? Well, Home Capital's tiny, like who cares, yeah, right? But what if we go after National Bank? Well, then before you know it, you take down National Bank, and the next thing you know, you're going to go after Canadian Western Bank. Well, geez, if those two are at risk, then before you know it, you're at the big banks. The fact is, these guys have shown in the last 30 days exactly how you can do it. It's that straightforward. It's that easy to do, because once you cast a little bit of doubt and you get the things going. And what do you think? You think CNBC or whatever the equivalent is in the UK is going to come up here and write, oh, this is unwarranted? Or they're going to go, oh my God, they're going to run with all the mortgage statistics. They go, geez, I think all these short guys are absolutely right. So what's the response? And who in the end gets crushed? All the hedgies make a fortune, right? The hedge funds all make a fortune. They walk off with their money. But that guy in Saskatoon who's got a pension, he's sitting here on January 1st, 2016, and he's saying, Martha, I'm 72. I'm too old to go back to work. My pension's down 40% because nobody was paying attention. And I'm saying that you've just seen the playbook here, right? That we are really, really vulnerable, and everybody's got to do their part, and that includes the press. The journalists have got to do their part. The regulators have got to get on the game, and we've got to recognize the seriousness of the problem. I think there's other mechanisms you can do as far as in emergencies, no shorting and all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the biggest things you can do right now is when these people come out and write this shit. Go after them. Go after these people hard, because this is not about, oh, okay, one guy's lost money on Valiant and one guy's made money on Valiant. These people are attacking the integrity of the system, and when you attack the integrity of the system, like, it's all the little people that get hurt. The big boys will always take care of themselves. The guys in Nevada will always have their yachts kind of stuff, but the guy in Saskatoon and the guy in Melfort, Saskatchewan, and the person in Nova Scotia, who's going to advocate for them?